sure as I'm standing here, we're going to make sure we ramp it up.
After Ontario fails to meet its own COVID-19 testing target 4 days in a row, Ford promises more random testing is coming.
We know it's a very difficult situation, and again, we're working as best as we possibly can, but we have to balance those individual cases out with the need to protect Canadians and protect our community as well, too.
With stories of families separated by the border closure, we ask what the government can do to help. Take a live look here at a plane getting ready to take off. The Canadian Historical Aircraft Association is about to put on a bit of a show, a tribute to frontline workers. We're live at the Windsor International Airport, ready to show you what you'll be able to see in the sky. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. Windsor's health unit alerting the public today that emergency rooms saw a significant spike in the number of people overdosing on fentanyl and other opioids. At least 40 people died of an overdose in Windsor, Essex last year, and drug-related trips to the emergency departments are much higher this year compared to the past. Jacob Barker looking into this today. Jacob, what triggered this alert?
Well, Chris, these overdoses happened between the 12th and the 18th of May, and 9 overdoses happened within a 24-hour period on Saturday. But the health unit didn't speak to it until its briefing today, days later. The health unit says that it does take some time to gather the data and get everything straight, but ultimately it was concerning enough to issue an alert.
The physical distancing measures officials are asking for are difficult for everyone. Routines have been impeded during the pandemic. Support groups are unable to meet. But health officials say for drug users, it can lead to very negative outcomes, relapse, increase in use, and risk of overdose. And while many resources have gone towards dealing with the pandemic, the importance of handling this crisis remains.
We do see spikes. It's a concerning spike. My concern is that a lot of people might be avoiding treatment because of the current COVID situation.
An urgent care center opened here during the pandemic for mental health and addictions. It connects users who may be experiencing issues with access to services in very short order. It's been talked about for the past 5 years, but recently it came together at a time when people might be nervous about showing up at the ER. It gives them a place to go.
That's one reason why we built this center, and we've had some uptake, quick uptake with it, with people using it. And a lot of people that have been to the center have been saying that they wouldn't have gone to the ER. They felt more comfortable coming here.
Funding for the center is temporary, but Moreau says the current numbers shows the need for it now and into the future.
But it isn't funded long term. We're hoping we can move some pots of money around after post-COVID to start working on it.
Brandon Bailey worries that COVID-19 is making it even more challenging for those struggling with addiction.
They're having to use in unsafe ways. Like right now, there's no overdose prevention site in the city, so people are having to go back to wherever they're using, and they're having to use alone. And when you're having to use alone, it's it's not safe to use alone. It's always have a buddy system if you're having to use at home.
His group has been pushing to have a site in the city for some time, and he says it would be helpful even more right now.
To have an overdose prevention site, you can seat people 6 feet in distance apart. You can have a certain amount of people come in at a time. Like I said, there's drug testing inside. You're able to, if people are asking for help, you can send them for help.
The health unit said today that 12 of the 18 overdoses had fentanyl in their system, and 3 further cases were caused by a type of opiates as well.
Well, Chris, another thing to emphasize is that both Bailey and Moreau are reminding the public that services are available for people at this time who might find themselves in a position where they're in crisis or using alone. There are crisis lines available and a transitional center for people downtown where they can get counseling. Chris?
Thanks, Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker live with us tonight. Now, with this local surge in COVID-19 cases as well today, 13 of today's 21 confirmed positives are migrant farm workers. At this point, the Windsor Essex County Health Unit says that there is no mass testing for them.
The testing in these places are based on the risk assessment, and we've been testing more people whenever we come across with these cases, we isolate them and we test them accordingly. And that's been the approach so far.
The health unit says those 13 cases are from at least 2 different facilities and that most of them have already been self-isolating. They say many of these new cases had come into contact with someone who had COVID-19. Now, the province has gradually started to reopen because of consistent declines in daily new cases of COVID-19. But lately, the daily new cases have been trending up once again. Adding to that, today was the 4th straight day that Ontario missed its daily target of completing 16,000 COVID-19 tests. It's raising concerns from public health experts, especially since the province has started to loosen those pandemic restrictions. Our Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley, has more.
Even though anyone with symptoms of COVID-19 can now get a test in Ontario, the traffic at this drive-through assessment centre is pretty slow.
We're not testing at the capacity that is needed to fully understand and control infections in the province.
So far in May, Ontario has only met its daily testing target about half the time. The numbers have fallen particularly short of the mark this week, frustrating Premier Doug Ford.
I'll be like an 800-pound gorilla on their backs every single day if I have to until I see these numbers go up.
It's not just the number of tests that matters, but also who gets tested. For the past month, Ontario has focused on testing every resident and staff at long-term care homes. That task is now essentially done. So what should the next testing focus be?
The next step is then moving out into asymptomatic screening and really getting a sense of the prevalence within our communities.
There's mounting evidence that people without symptoms are spreading the virus. Finding them is the next testing challenge.
That means not testing just the symptomatic and the people we know are likely infected, but going after the cases where we think they exist but aren't aware of them yet. So hunting the disease down.
Experts recommend testing people whose jobs force a lot of exposure to the public, such as supermarket staff and bus drivers.
I want to see truckers tested. I want to see taxi drivers tested. I want to see food processing plants being tested. That's what I want, and I'm confident it's going to happen.
No details yet from Doug Ford about how Ontario will ramp up its testing capacity, but he is promising a plan next week. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, you heard the Premier talk about some of the industries that he wants to see testing started at. He included the auto sector as well.
We want to go into areas of the automotive sector and start testing people in the automotive sector right across the province.
Just yesterday, Unifor called for more protections of workers, including ensuring that all their returning members across industries have adequate testing with COVID-19. Windsor's FCA plant restarted production on Tuesday after more than a month in that shutdown. They've implemented a strict screening process for all employees, along with safety protocols that you're looking at inside of the facility. Today, the company said that they've had no new cases involving Canadian employees since the restart. We've shared a few stories about cross-border families on this show, someone living in Windsor and their partner in Michigan. It's on the radar of Windsor-Tecumseh MP Eric Kuzmarchuk. He's sent cases to the Minister of Public Safety, the minister in charge of the border, which are currently under review.
We're receiving regular emails from constituents, and I think probably close to maybe 10 to a dozen of cases like this where we've brought to the minister's team to look at. And again, they look at those on an individual basis and they study them. And we also have contacts, obviously, with CBSA, cross-border agency folks as well on those specific issues. We know it's a very difficult situation, and again, we're working as best as we possibly can, but we have to balance those individual cases out with the need to protect Canadians and protect our community as well too, in terms of keeping the border closed to non-essential travel.
To your knowledge, has there been anybody who's been allowed to cross because of bringing this issue to your office, to the federal government?
We've been able to, so for example, we know that folks that are, for example, either essential workers, there's been occasions where either they're essential workers or they are students, for example, or they're completing, let's say, medical rotations across the border, and so they are under the current policy, they are allowed to, for example, to do that. Sometimes they've been stopped at the border, and we've intervened, and we've basically clarified what the rules and the current policies are, and so they were able to continue on and continue their medical residency, for example, and whatnot. So in those situations, we've been successful. There's a number of cases right now that are in front of the minister that are being reviewed on an individual basis, but we have not received a decision on those particular cases at the moment.
Now, with this pandemic, there's hundreds of international students that attend elementary and high schools in Windsor, Essex every year, but board officials are planning on seeing a change in enrollment come the fall.
There's a lot of questions moving forward towards September for international students. Will travel restrictions be eliminated for new students? A lot of our current students have remained in Canada and continue to do their academic work.
From the bigger picture, it will have a slight impact, but from a drastic or significant impact, it will not. And we're taking it into account because this time of the year, we look at the ability to do some financial adjustments, knowing the information we know today.
Each year, the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board sees about 150 international students. In September, they're expecting that to be cut in half due to travel restrictions associated with the pandemic. That means about $1 million in tuition they won't be receiving. But they say it's not significant when you look at the board's overall budget. Meanwhile, at the Greater Essex County District School Board, they have 270 international students this year. They're expecting most to attend again. In September, they expect 95% of them stayed here in Canada. Students from both boards come from countries such as China, Japan, Spain, Germany, and Mexico. Detroit's plans for the Ford fireworks has left Windsor officials scrambling to find a safe solution. U.S. officials say that the event will still go ahead, this time in August, but it'll be a televised event with Americans being kept away from the riverfront. But the news raised eyebrows locally.
I was concerned immediately, and I said, okay, what's going on here? What could happen in the future, I don't know. If the province come back and maybe lose those restrictions, if the case counts in our community go down to 0 or there's no spread, or if it can go in the opposite direction where we have hundreds of cases every day. So I think it just makes me nervous that when people are thinking about it, and events like these can really trigger what we are calling as like a second wave, even locally.
Officials with the City of Windsor say that they're left with many questions because their U.S. counterparts did not give them advance notice of this announcement. The city says it will work with the health unit to make a plan that respects public health regulations. At this point, still too soon to tell what the viewing might actually look like in our city because it's months down the road. But it's already got people talking.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's like tough times for people right now, so it maybe gives them something to look forward to.
I don't think so. Yeah, I'd rather than not, And then because you put the people on the very risky situation.
Watching fireworks on TV and getting the whole vibe outdoors is completely different. It's not the same whatsoever.
We live right on the river and we'd have a great view, so.
For us, it's no big deal, but it's so hard not to go out and watch, even when the Blue Angels flew over and things like that. It's just like, I get what they're trying to do and the support and encouraging the community, but like it forces people to go out and to be closer together. And if that's not what we should be doing right now, then that's kind of iffy in my opinion.
Now sticking with shows up in the sky, this is a live look at the Canadian Historical Aircraft Association getting ready to take off. That is one of a dozen pilots prepared for a flyover across Windsor, Essex. They're honoring frontline and essential workers. They're also commemorating the life of Captain Jen Casey of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds as we watch one of those planes start to get in position on the runway. You'll be able to spot the aircraft flying over Windsor, Amherstburg, Kingsville, Leamington, Essex, and Lakeshore. That'll be happening between now and 7:30. The provincial government is funding 15 research projects connected to COVID-19, and they include vaccine development and research that focuses on learning more about the virus. Lorenda Redikoff has the details.
Today, I'm proud to announce that we're moving forward with 15 of the most promising proposals.
Premier Doug Ford announced the new money today for 15 research projects coming from across the province. One will look at rapid testing, another a vaccine.
I want that vaccine to be discovered right here in Ontario.
One of the projects is from the University of Toronto, together with Mount Sinai Hospital. It looks at antibody testing of people who've had the virus but were asymptomatic. They'll use blood and saliva tests. The lead scientist is thrilled with the funding.
It's huge. So up until now, my lab and the labs of my colleagues have had to dip into our ordinary grant money that we use to pay to keep the lights on and keep our students and postdocs working. And we've had to use a lot of them because the work, of course, is a very high priority. So now that we have this grant money, we can kind of relax.
The Ontario funding announced today adds up to $7.2 million. More research will be accepted in the coming weeks. Other COVID-19 research is also going on in Ontario with other funding. One will involve going into long-term care homes to test a specific drug to see if it will work as an antiviral.
Working with Ontario Public Health and long-term care facilities to say, if we have outbreaks, we have a system that will let us test whatever we think the best drugs are.
The drug they're testing out is called favipiravir. It's already licensed in Japan and China against the flu. This testing for COVID-19 is in phase 2 by a pharmaceutical company. They have support from the Nova Scotia government.
I'm trying not to be excited because we don't know whether it works. The concept that you could identify cases early and effectively stop it from spreading in nursing homes is, obviously an enormous benefit.
She says a vaccine is important, but other treatments could come faster. Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, we often hear the expression, a perfect storm, and that describes what's happening along the shore of Lake Erie from Amherstburg to Rondeau Park. This here is a look at Cottery Park area just this past weekend, 2 kilometers south of Wheatley Harbor. A combination of factors is resulting in unprecedented erosion along the shoreline, including this part of the region. The Dean of the Faculty of Science at the University of Windsor has been studying this. He says high lake level, that's just the beginning. Lack of ice also means vicious winter waves. And as water levels drops, the university, they're going to continue studying to see how the shoreline like this actually recovers. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. I know we just looked at something that is pretty intense, but there's a lot of folks looking up at the sky right now. There's a flyover that will happen along Windsor-Essex for the next hour and a half. What's it going to look like there as far as, do we have the sunshine continuing, I guess? That's all I'm hoping for.
Yes, and your dreams will be realized in terms of those weather conditions. Yeah, we are looking at some decent conditions, although there's a system getting kind of close, and it is going to have an impact on us this evening. For the next hour and a half, things are looking pretty good. And this is actually a momentous day for another reason. I'm going to explain what I mean there in just a moment here when it comes to our weather boards. Showers will be creeping in, though, later on this evening. Some cloudy conditions, not all cloud, but a lot of cloud cover coming in for the weekend, and a big warm-up Sunday, not just a warm-up, but the dew points going up, too, so the humidity will be on the rise. These are your current temperatures, so it is 18 in Chatham-Kent, 19 right now in Windsor and in Leamington as well. Winds calm at the moment in terms of wind conditions, very nice for the flyover. Chatham-Kent, a little bit of a breeze there coming in off the lake, and of course the temperatures are a little cooler closer to the lake shore. But really what's happening with the weather pattern here is a really strong, large dome of high pressure, actually a couple of systems there, and then low pressure to the south. It wants to move up. We don't want it to. We want to get that high pressure blocking it, and there's kind of a battle line, and we're going to be right in the middle of it here into southwestern Ontario. So certainly some of that cloud cover riding in, a chance to get into some light showers, a few scattered showers overnight tonight, and then even through the day tomorrow, I'm going to stop this right around lunch. We could see some showers through the area and then kind of drying out, but still quite a bit of cloud cover in there as well. And I'll tell you what the momentous thing is, which I just passed on the radar, was that I've finally taken the snow, the colorations for snow off my radar. Normally I do that earlier in the month, but this has been the kind of spring where I had to leave it on a little bit longer. Looking a bit further into our weekend, we do have the chance not just of some showers, but with some buoyant air as we get that humidity coming in here, some thunderstorms rolling through as well. At this point, not looking like severe weather, but we'll be keeping an eye on that for you. And still, as I mentioned, some of that cloud cover and chance of showers really into the weekend and even into Monday. Overnight tonight, this is a look at your conditions. Those showers coming in a little bit later, 11 degrees for the low. Daytime high, the average is 21.6. We're looking at 19 degrees tomorrow again, just because of some of that extra cloud cover. A little further north, a little further east, you'll break out a bit. But into Saturday, 24 degrees. Quite a bit of cloud early. I think we'll get some breaks into the afternoon, and then that chance of showers, but more humidity coming in, Chris, there for Sunday.
Awesome. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
And let's see if we can't get a look at that live shot of these planes. Once again, a flyover here by the Canadian Historical Association, the Aircraft Association, out at the Windsor International Airport. They're going to be doing a flyover, a loop of the county pretty much. And as you can see there, I think we might be watching a pair of these planes take off live on the show tonight. If you look up in the sky, you might be able to catch a glimpse of that yourself. Again, this is in honor of frontline workers who are working during this pandemic, but also to commemorate the life of Captain Jen Casey, the Canadian Forces snowbird who died on Sunday. We'll leave you with this look here as they prepare to take off. The Transit Authority in New York City is launching a new project to disinfect its trains and buses. The agency is testing the effectiveness of UV rays. Now, those flashes that you see there, they're ultraviolet lights. Earlier this month, New York subway began shutting down overnight for the first time ever to allow for deep cleaning. Now, a public pilot program is adding UVC light to that process. The ultraviolet radiation that's being used is the most harmful, and some experts believe it's also especially effective at killing the virus that causes COVID-19. The state of Michigan is working to recover from catastrophic flooding caused by the failures of 2 dams. The governor says the U.S. President Donald Trump is promising federal support. The breaches caused some of the worst flooding that the state has ever experienced.
The damage is truly devastating. To see how high the water levels are, to see roofs barely visible in parts of Midland, and to see a lake that's been drained in another part, it's truly remarkable how much damage we have sustained.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. A lake that was behind one of the ruptured dams is essentially gone. That torrent of water that came after days of heavy rain caused a second dam to overflow. Several cities and towns have been inundated, and 11,000 people have been forced to higher ground. Hundreds of National Guard soldiers now in the area removing debris, erecting mobile bridges, and aiding evacuees. An investigation is underway into the upkeep of the 2 privately owned dams. There's no physical distancing to be seen here as a curious moose decides to get up close and personal with a Newfoundland woman out for a hike.
Hello. Hello. Hi. How's it going? Hi.
That's Ashley Walsh talking to the young moose very close. Wildlife officials always remind people the animals can be unpredictable, easily frightened. What a memorable moment, though. When I was a Newfoundland Labrador, I never got that close to something that big. 6:29 p.m. That's it for CBC Windsor News. We want to leave you with that look of the flyover over Windsor, Essex. You want to take a peek up in the sky tonight. This might be something you can spot as they continue that circle up until about 7:30 tonight. Thanks for watching. You can find more stories online, cbc.ca/Windsor.